going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, or you guys can, of course, just call me Juice, which has become my established nickname on this show for roughly the past 3 years. Welcome, guys, to the Juice Alert. Like I said, my name is Jamon McKinney, coming to you guys right here from my apartment in Toledo, Ohio. Of course, if you guys don't know, I go to the University of Toledo, and man, it's been a while since I've dropped an episode here on this show. It's been a while since I've been making content for you guys. It's been over 3 months, and I'm going to explain why I was away from making sports content for you guys after I get into my Super Bowl 56 prediction. This is going to be more of a shorter episode right here, just because I just want to kind of get my opinions out there before the Super Bowl officially gets underway. And I have not officially quit YouTube or quit making content for this show. It's just that I took a break, and I'm going to explain why briefly after I get past this Super Bowl topic, like I said. But again, I'm happy to be back. If you guys have not followed me on social media, please do so. My social media accounts will be in the description of this episode. But I want to get right into the nitty-gritty, because you guys have pretty much been asking for sports content and my opinions on sports for a while, and I'm going to give it to you. So in this episode right here on the Juice Alert, I'm going to break down and preview Super Bowl 56 between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, at the time of me making this episode, the Los Angeles Rams are 4.5-point favorites to win the Super Bowl over the Cincinnati Bengals. The Los Angeles Rams, obviously adding Matthew Stafford in the offseason. They've made a lot of big trades over the past couple of years, trading for Von Miller, trading for Jalen Ramsey, pretty much just saying screw draft picks and hey, we're all in. And obviously trading away Jared Goff in exchange for Matthew Stafford. A lot of people thought that was a questionable move because Jared Goff had gotten them to a Super Bowl. Personally, I agreed with the move. It's one of those things where it was a risk, but I understood the move. I always thought that Matthew Stafford was an underrated quarterback, and I think he's proved his worth throughout these playoffs. Now, there's another level that Stafford will need to get to as far as, proving that he's the ultimate winner by winning the Super Bowl. But regardless, the Rams, they have a star-studded team with a great coaching staff led by Sean McVay. I didn't expect the Rams to be here in the Super Bowl. I really did not. I felt that Stafford could win a Super Bowl with the Rams, and I actually claimed that he will eventually win a Super Bowl with the Rams. I just felt that in year number 1 of him learning a whole new system, joining a new team, it would take some time for him to learn how to win in the playoffs, because he had never won a playoff game before he got to the Los Angeles Rams. And we've seen guys like, Matt Ryan and Aaron Rodgers in the past when they've, been in new systems, new offenses. Year number 2 and year number 3 is where you saw Matt Ryan win a league MVP, where you saw Aaron Rodgers win back-to-back league MVPs playing under Matt LaFleur. So I just was one of those people that was like, let's pump the brakes. Let's not, act like the Rams are automatic Super Bowl threats and things like that just because they've added a bunch of pieces. It takes time, but they're here along with the Cincinnati Bengals. And man, I got to tell you, I'm so happy for the city of Cincinnati and their fan base. I am from Ohio. I was born in Dayton, Ohio. I currently reside in Ohio. I am so happy for Joe Burrow, for Jamar Chase, for that organization, for the people that have helped build up this team. Listen, it was kind of the same thing with the Bengals. I did not expect them to be here this year. I felt that they would be an improved team this year, but I did not expect them to win a tough division over Pittsburgh, over Baltimore, and over Cleveland. In fact, my Super Bowl pick to begin the year was Packers over Cleveland Browns. And obviously, I was dead wrong about that. The Packers, it looked like I was going to be correct on them. I had them winning the Super Bowl, but Aaron Rodgers and the team obviously disappointed. We'll see what Aaron Rodgers' future is going forward and whatnot. And by the way, guys, I don't have any notes in front of me or anything like that. I'm kind of just rambling a little bit. I know you guys, came to this video for a Super Bowl prediction, and I'm going to get to that very shortly, but it's just one of those things where I kind of want to ramble on and talk about these teams and things like that. That's just how I am, but either way, the Bengals, I thought that they were still a rebuilding team, and boy, is that rebuild sped up. Joe Burrow has established himself, to me, as an elite quarterback heading into this game. I think that he's in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes, with Aaron Rodgers, with the Josh Allens of the world, with the Russell Wilsons of the world as an elite quarterback, because he does elite quarterback things. The accuracy, the mobility is really, really good. The processing, the reading defenses, the ability to elevate a team. Let's be real, people. This Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is average at best. I mean, at best. And Joe Burrow makes them look good, and he's overcome this bad offensive line throughout the entire season. He's been throwing the ball down the field, and this is really Joe Burrow's first full season as a starter. That's the crazy thing about it, guys. I mean, Joe Burrow got hurt last year, tore his ACL, and the Bengals made a huge risk by not really drafting a whole lot of offensive linemen, especially in the first round. They took Jamar Chase, and I was actually not against the move. I actually liked the Jamar Chase draft pick just because I said he and Joe Burrow have that chemistry. And it's one of those things where I think Jamar Chase is too good to pass up on. I don't care about Penei Sewell. You need to draft Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase has rewarded the Cincinnati Bengals. But also, I think you have to give Zach Taylor a lot of credit, for helping this Cincinnati Bengals team get over the hump. A lot of people criticize Zach Taylor. To start, throughout his tenure with the Cincinnati Bengals heading into this game. A lot of people wonder, would he be the coach past the 2022 season, the 2021 season? Was he going to be the first head coach fired? Zach Taylor has proved his worth, and I got to give the Cincinnati Bengals a lot of credit for sticking with Zach Taylor. I think that sometimes bad organizations fall into the decision of getting rid of head coaches way too fast, because it's one of those things where Cincinnati really wasn't going anywhere. At least we thought they weren't going anywhere. Initially, you don't want to have Joe Burrow on a second head coach right out the gate coming off an injury. You need to establish, a culture and rhythm within that organization of familiarity. And I think that, listen, the players have said nothing but good things about Zach Taylor throughout the time in which he's been the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. It's just one of those things where he didn't always have the talent necessary to show that he can be a winning coach in the National Football League. Now, again, Zach Taylor still has a lot to prove, because is he going to be maybe the next Andy Reid, or is he going to be the next Doug Peterson? And Doug Peterson, we'll see what he does in Jacksonville. But the point is, Doug Peterson was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles as a starting quarterback, won the Philadelphia Eagles their first ever Super Bowl. And a lot of people, thought that Doug Peterson was this next great head coach. At least I thought he was. And he flames out in Philadelphia. Now, we can argue whether or not he should have been fired. I personally don't think he should have been fired from Philadelphia. But the point is, we've seen coaches like Mike McCarthy and Gary Kubiak win Super Bowls. And from that point, of winning the Super Bowl, they regress as head coaches. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Zach Taylor adapts year to year and how he will continue to grow as a head coach with this young core in Cincinnati. And by the way, the Cincinnati Bengals are set up for the future because they have a ton of cap space next year. So it's one of those things where, the Bengals, beating the Tennessee Titans on the road was really impressive. Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times in that game. The defense really helped him out. Joe Burrow made plays. And then coming back from 18 points down to the Kansas City Chiefs, man, I got to tell you, Kansas City is the team that is probably going to be there for the next at least 5 to 7 years, with Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, really good team. They've been to a Super Bowl, and they've won a Super Bowl. A lot of people thought the Chiefs would be the next dynasty. And the Bengals beat them not only during the regular season, but also when it mattered most in the playoffs. So if you're Cincinnati, you should feel ecstatic about your team. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals have a chance to be a great team for the next decade with Joe Burrow if he stays healthy and the Bengals continue to build around him. So when you look at the Rams, it's one of those things where they've gotten here taking risks, and those risks have paid off. Matthew Stafford has paid off. Getting Jalen Ramsey has paid off. The thing about the Rams is they pretty much just shoved away those draft picks and said, hey, let's get star players, because we're at a point where we're going to win 10 to 11 games pretty much every single year because our core of players is very talented. And not to mention Aaron Donald is amazing. I think he has a chance to go down as I won't say he has a chance to go down as the greatest defensive player that's ever lived, but he will at least be in that conversation when it's all said and done, whether you guys like it or not. He's amazing. But when it comes to the Rams, man, it's just one of those things where they've traded all their assets and they've gone all in to win right now. And that's what you have to do in a tough division, because the 49ers, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, over the past, 10 years, those have been some real football teams, and they're going to continue to be real football teams. So congratulations to the Rams, but I did not expect the Cincinnati Bengals to be here. It's been a great turnaround for that team. It really has. I'm ecstatic for them, and this potentially could be the greatest turnaround of an NFL franchise in history if Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are able to win a Super Bowl, because they are way ahead of schedule. So these are how these two teams have gotten here. You know, the Rams have gotten here by drafting well and going out and getting free agents and trading for players. And same thing with the Bengals. You know, they built their team in kind of an unconventional way where they've kind of ignored the offensive line and have kind of just put Band-Aids around the offensive line. But one thing Cincinnati has done is they have put legitimate weapons around Joe Burrow, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I mean, that's one of the best wide receiver cores in the entire NFL. And Jamar Chase has a chance to become one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the NFL in a couple of years. He's that good, people. Okay? And it's one of those things where you look at teams like the Colts and the Patriots, teams that really don't have any weaknesses on their roster. Okay? Yes, they don't have any weaknesses, but are they special enough to get over the hump? Meanwhile, you look at Cincinnati, not a great offensive line. There's some areas on the defense I think need some work, but they're so elite at wide receiver, and they have a great quarterback to the point where they can overcome those things. If you have an elite unit and you're super special at something, if you specialize in something in the NFL, you can overcome deficiencies. And it's one of those things where I look at, even in the NBA, the Phoenix Suns, to me, were the more complete roster than maybe the Milwaukee Bucks. But it's one of those things where when you force the Phoenix Suns to be special, outside of Devin Booker, they didn't have enough special firepower to get over Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's one of those things where, yeah, the Bengals maybe don't have the best offensive line, but they can overcome those things because they have explosive weapons on the outside at wide receiver, and they have a core. And by the way, the running back Joe Mixon is really good too, along with Samaje Perine. But Joe Burrow also is showing that, hey, I'm worth the number one overall pick. That's what number one overall pick looks like, people. And Joe Burrow is bad news for quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, because it's one of those things where if you're a top 10 pick, if you look at Joe Burrow and you ask yourself, why are other quarterbacks not performing at this level that Joe Burrow is performing at? That's a real question you have to ask. But I gotta say, man, I'm so happy for the Bengals. They've had a complete turnaround, and I'm so happy that I get to cover it, because Rams versus Bengals in the Super Bowl, I could not think of a more likable Super Bowl matchup in recent memory. And honestly, I couldn't think of a more difficult Super Bowl for me to predict. This is the hardest Super Bowl for me to predict since probably the Seahawks and the Patriots, where the Seahawks, they were going to be potentially this next dynasty, a lot of people thought, but I actually picked the Patriots that year to knock them off, and the Patriots ended up knocking them off. It was a little bit of luck with Malcolm Butler getting the interception and whatnot in the end zone, but in the end, the Patriots got it done, and then the Seahawks, they fell. And look, I'm going to get to my prediction very, very shortly. I told you guys that roughly about 10 minutes ago, and I've been rambling here. And again, like I said, I just came on here to talk, and I don't really have any notes in front of me. Usually I have a big little notebook in front of me with a bunch of notes, and I'm just doing things a little bit unconventional right here because, well, I'm kind of pressed with time. I'm still figuring things out with my life, and there's a lot of things I want to talk about on the show, but the point is I wanted to get this content out to you guys. But this is really, really how these teams have gotten here. The Rams, this is how they've gotten here. Aggressive moves, great coaching staff, and a quarterback upgrade. And the Bengals, not only a big upgrade at quarterback from a couple of years ago compared to Andy Dalton and the Carson Palmers of the world. By the way, that also leads to the question. I want you guys to comment in the comment section here if you're watching on YouTube or a Platinum where you can comment on my show, or even hit me up on social media. Like I said, my social media is in the description of this episode. Does Joe Burrow kind of make us look at Carson Palmer a different way? Because all we heard about was, the Cincinnati Bengals were the problem. It wasn't Carson Palmer's fault. It was the Cincinnati Bengals organization that ruined Carson Palmer. Or maybe was it a little bit of, maybe it was that, or maybe it was Carson Palmer maybe needed to improve. And maybe it was Carson Palmer, for whatever reason, just couldn't seem to stay healthy, couldn't get it done when it mattered most, even though he had guys like Chad Ochocinco beside him at wide receiver. But, spoiler alert, no one really talks about that. But that's one thing I want to think about. But the Bengals, They've drafted well. They've signed free agents. That's one thing that Cincinnati had not done in the past is they really didn't go out and sign free agents, and they've been aggressive and they've done things the more unconventional way. And they're the Cinderella story. And I'm so happy for Cincinnati. And that is how we got to Super Bowl 56. So with all that said, I'm going to make my official Super Bowl 56 prediction right here. Rams versus Bengals. Number 1 overall pick, Matthew Stafford, will be facing off against number one overall quarterback, first round pick Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago. Matthew Stafford over a decade ago out of Georgia. And obviously, Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow aren't going to be in a throwing contest versus each other. They're going to be facing the opposing defenses. Stafford will face, obviously, the Bengals defense. Burrow will obviously face the Rams defense. I do think that Joe Burrow's job is going to be much more difficult than Matthew Stafford's job just because I know Cincinnati has gotten away with it all season, but the offensive line worries me. And I'm just going to say this right now. The Los Angeles Rams are going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56. And here's why. First of all, the coaching matchup favors the Rams by a long shot. I do like Zach Taylor. I like what he's brought to the table. I think that he, at this point, is a lot more underrated than overrated. But I got to be real, people. I think Sean McVay is in the conversation for best head coach in the entire NFL. I think that he's that good. And here's how I think this game is going to play out. I believe both teams will come out and score a lot of points early. It will be a very close game pretty much throughout the fourth, heading into the fourth quarter. I believe this game is going to be close. I actually think Cincinnati is going to jump out to an early lead in this game. I think that they have nothing to lose in this game. It's one of those things where no one expected Cincinnati to be here. They're underdogs. I think Joe Burrow and this Cincinnati offense is going to come out and really punch the Rams in the mouth. They're going to punch the Rams in the mouth early. And I actually think Cincinnati probably will lead at halftime. But as the game wears on, I do think Matthew Stafford and the Rams will settle in. I think Matthew Stafford will make a couple more big throws down the stretch than Joe Burrow. And ultimately, I think the Rams are going to win. I really do. I think they're the better team. I think that's pretty obvious. Obviously, the best team doesn't always win, but I just think that the Rams coaching staff is going to make these second half adjustments. I think the Rams defensive line is going to overwhelm Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati offensive line. And as the game wears on, I just think the Rams are the more physical football team, and I think that they have better players. I just flat out believe that. And when I get the better team with the better players and the better coaching staff, and a coaching staff in Sean McVay that honestly has something to prove, because the last time Sean McVay was in the Super Bowl, he laid an egg versus Bill Belichick. Now, again, it's Bill Belichick, but Sean McVay and the Rams, they came up small versus the Patriots, especially on the offensive side of the football. And I think that Sean McVay is going to use that experience to his advantage. He's going to come out with a great game plan. And I think that overall, I think that the Rams are going to win. It's one of those things where we don't know how Zach Taylor is going to respond to being a head coach in his first ever Super Bowl. Sean McVay has been in this situation before, and that's what I'm really riding on. Now, I will say this. I will not be surprised if the Cincinnati Bengals blow out the Los Angeles Rams. I would not be surprised. And the reason why is because I just don't quite know what I'm going to get from Matthew Stafford. I actually trust Joe Burrow in this matchup more than Matthew Stafford. And that's crazy. I'm picking the Rams to win this game, and I'm saying this, but the point is, to me, I think Joe Burrow is going to show up regardless. I don't see the Cincinnati Bengals getting blown out in this game. I think the Los Angeles Rams are either going to win a very close game or they're going to get blown out. And the reason why I say that is because it's one of those things where I just have a little bit of pause when it comes to Matthew Stafford. Because one thing we know about Matthew Stafford is he's going to throw interceptions, and he may not throw an interception in this game, but he's going to give the other team opportunities to take advantage of his mistakes. He's a gunslinger. And to me, between him and Joe Burrow, I think Joe Burrow is the more safer and more disciplined quarterback. And that's saying a lot because Joe Burrow is only in his second season, and Matthew Stafford is what? He's played in the NFL for over a decade. So don't get me wrong, Cincinnati. I could see your team pulling this off, but in the end, I think the Rams stars will come to play. I think that Cooper Kupp's going to come to play. I think that Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be a big X factor in this game. I think this Rams defense will play very well. And it's one of those things where I just feel like the team that has the better players, the better coaching staff, and I think the team that has the more sense of urgency is going to win. Because if the Rams don't win a Super Bowl this year, when will they win a Super Bowl? Because they pretty much mortgaged their entire future for this moment. When you look at Cincinnati, yes, they're on a Cinderella type run, but there's reason to believe that Joe Burrow could be back in this game. Okay, because Cincinnati, they have a ton of cap space. They can get better. They're just now figuring out how to win. Meanwhile, you got Matthew Stafford. He's getting up there in age. He's had some injuries, and it's a very tough division. So I don't know if the Rams are going to be back here in the Matthew Stafford era. And I think Matthew Stafford is going to realize it. He's going to realize that, and he is going to play big when it matters most. Not saying that Joe Burrow won't play big, but I think that Matthew Stafford will play a little bit bigger when the spotlight shines the brightest, just because he has the better team. And ultimately, I believe in Matthew Stafford as a talent. So I've got the Rams winning this game. I think it'll be a high-scoring game, and I think that the Rams will ultimately come out on top, like I said, in Super Bowl 56. Give me Rams over Bengals in Super Bowl 56. Okay, so I want to segue to this quick topic right here. I'm going to try and make this as short as possible, just because you guys come to this show for sports opinions, not my whole life story, but I had recently been away from making content for you guys for roughly over 5 months, and maybe it's not 5 months, maybe it's 4 months, 3 months. Bottom line is, virtually the entire NFL season, I was away from making content for you guys, and that's not something that I intended on doing initially when I, came into the whole thought process of the season. I felt that I was going to be putting out some of my best content possible for you guys throughout the 2021-2022 season. It was going to be awesome. It was going to be great. In fact, the most recent football-related video that I dropped was an Aaron Rodgers related topic that was in the offseason. And I pretty much had, before that, dropped all my offseason record predictions. So I really haven't came out and put out any football thoughts, at least here on this show. I've been talking on Twitter, been talking on Instagram, all that great stuff. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you haven't already. Links to those accounts are in the description of this episode. But the bottom line is, I've been away for a while. So I think I owe you guys, because you guys as an audience have been awesome to me. You guys have helped change my life, and you guys give me the platform to do what I love to do, which is talk about sports. And so I think that I owe you guys a mini apology. Pardon me, that was my phone. I'm ringing right there. I'm actually going to turn that off. But I owe you guys a mini apology and an explanation as to why I was away. So first of all, like I said, I didn't intend on being away this long, but it was one of those things where this thing called life got in the way, and I was really busy with school, and like I said, I'm giving you guys a mini apology, but at the same time, I don't feel like I should have to apologize for going away. I obviously want to be committed to making YouTube videos and this whole show for you guys 24/7. If I could wake up every day and make content for you guys, which is possible, I could find a way to do that, but I feel like it would be very unhealthy for me. Even the Colin Cowherds of the world, even the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, they don't, drop stuff every day. Okay, they have a weekend off, but the point is, I could, do that, but I'm still growing. I'm still learning, and it's one of those things where I'm 21 years old, and I have a whole life ahead of me, and this year I really, dove into the classroom. I really, took some classes that really challenged me and forced me to even, take it upon myself to take the extra time to, do things the right way and to, just really dive into my career field, which is sports broadcasting, sports analyzation. I am a media communications major at my college, and it was one of those things where I would rather sacrifice that time now away from the show rather than 10 years from now where I don't have those skills established. So it was just one of those things where, as time went on and on, I said, I'm going to go back to making a show. I'm going to get back to making a show for you guys. And I'm the type where I like to make longer episodes. Remember when I covered the 2020 draft for you guys, I put out roughly 25 topics in one show. It was about a 2.5 hour show. Congratulations and shout out to all you guys that listened to and tuned into that show. But the point is, at times I can make really long episodes, and I just really wasn't able to make those longer episodes this year. And this year I'm probably going to be changing from this point going forward, but I'm going to be probably changing my style a little bit, making shorter shows for you guys. But the shorter the shows, that means the more shows I will be putting out there for you guys. But the point is, it's just one of those things where I really had to step back and find myself as a human being. I just had to take some time away, and I think it was for the better. I recently got a job at a news station. I recently was on local television multiple times, doing things for my television class, and also I recently got paid to do a Muhammad Ali segment for something called Ali Day that's celebrated here in the Toledo area, and it was awesome. It was fun. I got to talk about Muhammad Ali, so I'm moving in the right direction as far as my career goes, and if I could do this show forever, I would, but the reality is, eventually, I think someday this show is going to end. I'm never going to delete this content off of the internet or anything like that. So whenever I'm done, these videos or this content will be forever out there for people to listen to for however long it's going to be out there, unless, YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify deletes my content. But the point is, I do firmly believe that down the road, I will be able to make an even bigger and better show for you guys. So for the time being, I'm still going to continue the Juice Slur. I don't have any plans of quitting the show entirely. It's just one of those things where I hope you guys understand why I went away. And again, I didn't write a script for this. This is just off the dome at the top of my head. It's just one of those things where I've been meeting new people. I've been really diving into my own life. I've been finding out a lot about myself, and it's awesome. And it's just one of those things where sometimes, you have to sacrifice some things, and you can't do everything all at once. And I think it was very unhealthy for me at times to be cramming in and trying to put out episodes. And again, I don't regret doing it. It's just that I've really taken a step back. I've tried to, get more rest these days, and I'm just trying to find out more about me. So that's how this whole thing came about, where I wasn't making content for a whole NFL season, but I'm back officially. I'm going to try to be more consistent. I'll try to be as consistent as I can be, but that's the reason why I went away. Wanted to give you guys an explanation, and back to our regularly scheduled program. So I now want to shift to Matthew Stafford, because there was a lot of questions about Matthew Stafford once he landed with the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people had not consistently followed his career in Detroit, just because Detroit, they never were really on nationally televised games. It's a little bit of a smaller market, crazy enough, compared to some other teams. I know Detroit is a fairly big city, but when it comes to football, we don't think of the Detroit Lions as this juggernaut of a franchise. In fact, what do we think about when we think of the Lions? We think of Barry Sanders retiring early, Calvin Johnson retiring early, the franchise having not won a playoff game in ages. And the Lions were lucky enough to land Matthew Stafford with the first overall pick over a decade ago. And while Stafford has put up Hall of Fame level numbers in Detroit, he hadn't won a lot of big games. And look, I was one of those people that said, hey, let's not knock Matthew Stafford for this, because where a quarterback lands and the support that a quarterback gets, it's everything. I mean, look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady landed with an all-time great head coach in Bill Belichick, and throughout his career, he's always had great offensive lines, has always had great defenses, and Bill Belichick has taken care of the special teams and things like that. He's always been at a distinct advantage. Aaron Rodgers. He gets to sit behind Brett Favre, lands with the Green Bay Packers, a well-established organization that's all about winning. They put solid players around Aaron Rodgers throughout his prime. He's had to overcome some things, but the point is, Aaron Rodgers did not land with a bad organization. Russell Wilson lands with a Seahawks team that was very talented, and we saw very quickly that, hey, Seattle's got good players. All they needed was a great quarterback, and Russell Wilson was that guy. You look at some quarterbacks that have failed in the past couple of years. They've failed because of the situation around them, where the offensive line's been bad, the coaching staff has not put them in a great position to succeed. And while Matthew Stafford was a victim of that, Matthew Stafford also showed that, hey, I'm still a very talented player. I've always thought that Matthew Stafford was underrated. And here's the thing. The truth has been revealed about Matthew Stafford. He's always been able to win big games. He's always been able to get to a Super Bowl. He proved in his first year with a new team in a loaded NFC and in a loaded division that he can get to a Super Bowl if you put great players around Matthew Stafford. If you put bad players around Stafford, he's not going to win, because there are very few quarterbacks out there that can overcome dysfunction. And the truth is, Matthew Stafford has very quickly exposed the Detroit Lions organization, because look at Jared Goff. Jared Goff once was in the MVP conversation with the Los Angeles Rams. He once got them to a Super Bowl. And guess what? Jared Goff has not looked too good with the Detroit Lions. And again, Not saying Jared Goff is bad. All I'm saying is if you play for a team like Washington, like Jacksonville, like the New York Jets, like the Chicago Bears, teams that over the past, 20 to 25 years have been a little dysfunctional, have not always gotten the quarterback situation right, have ran through head coaches, just have not been able to establish a stable culture, players are going to struggle, okay? Now, there are some players that are great no matter what. I think that Aaron Rodgers could have been great no matter where he landed. I think Deshaun Watson, same thing with him. I mean, despite a lot of dysfunction around him in Houston, he still finds a way to play at an MVP level, okay? So I don't think Matthew Stafford is quite on the level of, he's this god, he's this amazing quarterback. He's great, he's very talented. And I do think that Matthew Stafford can get into the Hall of Fame one day. I just don't think he'll ever be in the inner sanctum of being an all-time great quarterback, but that's okay. There are very few of those quarterbacks. But Stafford, he has established very quickly that the Lions organization is not very good. In 1 year of leaving, Stafford has proven people wrong. And you really get a sense of how valuable a player is or an employee is when you see what life looks like for them when they actually leave that said company. When Matthew Stafford was playing for the Lions, oddly enough, a couple of years, they actually had a chance to win. He got them to the playoffs a couple of years, didn't win a playoff game, but got them there a couple of times, put up really good numbers. But now, you look at the Lions, man, they're the worst team in the league, arguably. I mean, they got the second overall pick. That never happened when Matthew Stafford was there. And now Matthew Stafford's playing in the Super Bowl. And I told people, listen, Stafford's not the problem. It's the Lions organization. People looked at the quarterback win stat and said Stafford's below 500. Well, yeah, no duh. When your coach is Matt Patricia, when you have a bad defense, a bad offensive line, and when you're playing for a bad company, and again, I'm not trying to bash the Lions to the point where I'm saying that there are bad people working there. All I'm saying is compared to other organizations, the Lions, they don't match up because they haven't won enough. And when's the last time the Lions have won a playoff game? It's been a long time. Stafford wins 3 playoff games. Actually 2, pardon me. If he wins 3, that means he would have won Super Bowl 56 over the Bengals. But yeah, the point is, Stafford's winning playoff games immediately with the Rams. So I think Matthew Stafford, I'm so happy for the guy. He's finally caught a break. He's finally in a situation where it's not all on him. He can rely on the running game. He can rely on his defense. He has a coaching staff that will adapt. I'm so happy for Matthew Stafford. He's playing in Super Bowl 56 versus Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And regardless, at least in my opinion, of whatever Matthew Stafford does throughout the rest of his career, I think he's proved that the Lions organization just flat out isn't very good, whether he wins a Super Bowl in the future or not. That's my opinion. That's how I feel. Now, when it comes to Matthew Stafford, he's quickly changing the narrative, like I said, between the Lions organization and between how people should feel about his career. What we know now is that if you put great players around Matthew Stafford, he can at least get you to a Super Bowl. And very soon, once the Super Bowl is actually played, we're going to find out if Matthew Stafford can actually win a Super Bowl. Okay, we're going to find out answers to this whole puzzle very quickly, okay? But here's the thing. Everyone talks about, Matthew Stafford's overhated because, he didn't win in Detroit. People, never gave him the credit that he deserves. And to a certain degree, I agree with you guys. I do. But here's the thing. In order for Matthew Stafford to completely change the narrative, he has to win a Super Bowl. And even when Matthew Stafford got to the Rams, I said, listen, there's major pressure on this guy, Matthew Stafford, to win. Because people forget, Matthew Stafford was the first overall pick of his draft class a couple of years ago. The number one player taken in his entire draft class. Okay? Keep that in mind, all right? So there's expectations that come with just being that guy, okay? But also, the Rams have already established that they can be a great team even without Matthew Stafford. They got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. And if you talk to most people out there, people are going to say, yeah, Jared Goff can win you games, but Jared Goff is not close to being an elite quarterback or a top 10 quarterback. He's very dependent on the situation around him. So if you think about this, okay, the Rams got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, who most people aren't really all that high on, at least compared to a Matthew Stafford. If Matthew Stafford is as talented as we think he is, the Rams should be able to win the Super Bowl. I think that that's a fair criticism and a fair argument to make. If Matthew Stafford has this rocket arm, if he's the first overall pick, when you put great players around him, he should be able to win you a Super Bowl. I think that that is a fair criticism and a fair argument to have. I think it's a little bit unfair, but this is the reality. Matthew Stafford will continue to have haters until he officially wins a Super Bowl. The only way Matthew Stafford can completely change the narrative, whether the narrative is fair or unfair about his career of him being a losing quarterback in Detroit, the only way Matthew Stafford can erase that narrative completely, or at least come close to erasing it completely, is if he wins a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. Okay, because here's the thing, people. Nick Foles a couple of years ago won a Super Bowl, and no one talks about him right now, okay? No one talks about him. So even if you win a Super Bowl, and again, that's part of Nick Foles, that's part of that's on Nick Foles, because Nick Foles, you know, he kind of fell off a cliff ever since he left Philadelphia. But the point is, even guys that have won a Super Bowl, it's not like that guarantees that you're going to be talked about as an all-time great quarterback, or people are going to always talk about you. Like Joe Flacco a couple of years won a Super Bowl. Big deal. But here's the thing. Stafford was the first overall pick of the draft. Stafford has actually put up Hall of Fame numbers. Okay? So here's the thing. There's a lot on the line for Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford can totally change the narrative if he wins a Super Bowl. But if Matthew Stafford fails, then that always will give people reason to believe that, hey, you know, I told you, even if we put a great team around Stafford, even on the Rams with a great head coach in Sean McVay, Aaron Donald by his side on defense, great weapons on the outside, and Odell Beckham Jr., you know, Cooper Kupp and all these guys, he still can't get it done. He still can't win a Super Bowl. I've seen other quarterbacks win Super Bowls with less talent, and that narrative may be fair. It might not be fair. To me, it's a little bit unfair. But the point I'm trying to make is, look, who's the greatest quarterback of all time? At least in most people's opinion. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady, to this day, might be the greatest athlete of all time. He's at least in the conversation. At least he's the best quarterback, or the greatest quarterback of all time, if you want to go that way. In my opinion, at least. To this day, people still to this day discredit Tom Brady's legacy. And Matthew Stafford ain't got close to the resume that Tom Brady has. So even if Stafford wins, he's still going to have haters beside him. But the point is, a good majority of reasonable people that will reasonably probably change their opinion about Matthew Stafford if he wins will give him his flowers probably. So the bottom line for Matthew Stafford is, look, it's great to get to a Super Bowl, but Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Ain't no one talking about him right now. Jimmy Garoppolo, he got to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Jimmy Garoppolo might not be with the 49ers next year. He's kind of an afterthought. You know, not everyone's very high on him. But Matthew Stafford can forever cement himself in history if he were to leave the Lions, which he already has, and win a Super Bowl with the Rams, which I definitely think he can do. It might even happen in Super Bowl 56 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see. There's a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford, and fair or unfair, in order for him to change the narrative, or at least shift the narrative towards him in a positive way, and that way actually being on an upward trend, Matthew Stafford will need to win a Super Bowl. Okay, last and final topic of the day. The Cincinnati Bengals, to me, have officially arrived. Win or lose Super Bowl 56, I believe the Cincinnati Bengals, led by Joe Burrow, have officially arrived. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are actually ahead of schedule, people, because the first year Joe Burrow gets drafted, you know, he gets hurt, shows flashes when he plays, but he gets hurt. They end up with a top 5 pick. And people thought that, man, the Bengals need to get their offensive line together. We don't know how great Joe Burrow is going to be coming off this injury. You know, what's it going to look like? Are the Cincinnati Bengals going to build a great team around Joe Burrow? What's going to happen? Well, it turns out a year later after Joe Burrow's injury, he's playing in a Super Bowl. And win or lose Super Bowl 56, the Cincinnati Bengals, to me, are here to stay. They've officially arrived. First of all, Joe Burrow, to me, is an elite quarterback. He does elite things. When things are wrong, he can make it right. Meaning, if the offensive line isn't protecting him very well, if there's tight windows if there's tight window throws to be made, he can execute those tight window throws. He can elevate the players around him. Joe Burrow is that dude at quarterback. I believe in Joe Burrow. I think he's proved his worth. He's only in his second season. He's already led this team to a Super Bowl in a very tough division and a very tough AFC. I think Joe Burrow's only going to get better. But the key thing is we knew Joe Burrow was great. He was the first overall pick of his draft class. Unless you, for whatever reason, thought Tua Tagovailoa was a threat to Joe Burrow, which I never thought he was. I thought Tua was a very overrated prospect at quarterback coming out of Alabama. Most people thought Joe Burrow was the guy, okay? We wondered, could Cincinnati build a real team around him? And Mike Brown, the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals, has gotten a lot of criticism. And rightfully so, because it's been a long, long time since the Cincinnati Bengals have won multiple playoff games and have even played in a Super Bowl. But Mike Brown and the Bengals decided we're going to get the quarterback in Joe Burrow, and we're going to build around him. We're going to put great weapons around him. We're going to draft Jamar Chase, who's been excellent. We're going to draft T. Higgins, who's been excellent. We're going to keep Tyler Boyd involved. We're going to keep getting Joe Mixon involved. And we're going to spend some money on defense because I've always said, if you have a great quarterback, give him a good defense because more times than not, if you have an elite quarterback, and I think Joe Burrow already is in that elite conversation, I really do firmly believe that, most of the time, they can figure out the offense. Just keep getting them the ball back, and they'll reward you. Very similar to how Tom Brady rewarded the Patriots for consistently getting him good defenses. Same thing with Joe Montana. Same thing with Terry Bradshaw. There's a trend with these dynasties and these all-time great quarterbacks that have won multiple Super Bowls. They always had great defenses. And last but not least, I got to give him his flowers. I don't know if Zach Taylor is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals head coach of the future for the foreseeable future, but he's done a very good job. You look at Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur, the Green Bay Packers head coach, has been there for 3 years, and he's had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. And he hasn't been to a Super Bowl. So we have to give Zach Taylor some credit here, people. He was very criticized. A lot of people didn't really know who he was when the Bengals hired him, and he's won me over. I'm not saying I'm all the way on the Zach Taylor hype train, but I got to give the guy a lot of credit because a lot of people did not expect this from him. He's done a great job of developing Joe Burrow. And whether it be Joe Burrow developing himself or Zach Taylor helping him out, the bottom line is things are working. This team has gotten to a Super Bowl. And here's the thing. Even if Zach Taylor isn't the future head coach for the Bengals, guess what? There's going to be a head coach out there and a good head coach out there that would flock to go coach Joe Burrow and get this core of players for the Cincinnati Bengals. Worst case scenario, if Zach Taylor gets fired in the next 3 to 4 years, there will be a head coach out there that will flock to Cincinnati. I guarantee you it's a great situation to be in. Really all Cincinnati needs is an offensive line and a couple more players on defense. And I think they're set up to be a really good, if not dominating team for the next decade. So to me, look, when Joe Burrow was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals, even before he was drafted actually, before Joe Burrow played a single snap for the Cincinnati Bengals, I came out and said, look, I think the Bengals are going to draft this guy, and if the Bengals draft Joe Burrow, he will win them a Super Bowl. I don't know if the Bengals are going to overcome the Rams. I think the Rams are a very good team, but I could see it. It's definitely possible because they're there already. They proved a lot of people, including myself, wrong up to this point, but it's one of those things where I expect at some point Joe Burrow will win the Cincinnati Bengals a Super Bowl, whether it's in Super Bowl 56 or in Super Bowl 66. I think it's going to happen at some point, but regardless, to me, the Cincinnati Bengals, they've officially arrived. You can now officially take them serious. You can take the sticker of bad organization off of them because they're an established team now. I think they're here to stay, led by Joe Burrow and an organization that, to me, has done some underrated things to elevate a young quarterback that had a lot of talent coming into the league, as we knew. Well, everyone, that's pretty much all I have today. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode today. Have a God bless day. Stay safe out there. I hope you all enjoy the Super Bowl, and have a God bless day, and I'm out. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I currently am a freshman there right now. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.